Hello and welcome to this episode of Crossing Borders from Mexico City, where I have conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those with some connection to Latin America. This episode is brought to you by latamlist.com. If you like this podcast, you'll enjoy LatamList's daily tech news reporting. Sign up for the mailing list to get weekly updates via email. My guest today is Migue Morkin, the Argentinian founder of Sirena, a CRM and communication system that helps businesses connect with clients via text, audio, and photos on WhatsApp. We cover his journey from working in machine learning at a startup that was acquired by a global business to starting a marketplace in Brazil that didn't end up working, and the hard pivot they took to successfully build Sirena into what it is today. We also cover how Migue thinks about raising money, advice to founders about being a Spanish-speaking entrepreneur in Brazil, and how Latin Americans can do global businesses from the region, along with his book and blog recommendations for SaaS entrepreneurs. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Migue Morkin. Hey Migue, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being willing to do it.
Hi Nathan, how are you?
Doing well. So where are you in the world today?
Well, right now I'm in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, the coffee store in Buenos Aires.
And where are you from
City
originally?
where I was born. Yeah, well, I was born here in Buenos Aires. I've been traveling a lot in the last few years. I've been living in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and I also been living in Mexico City. And right now I'm in Buenos Aires.
So you've been all over. Tell me a little bit about your business. What are you working on?
Well, Sirena is a software service company. We provide a software for businesses to manage the relationship with customers through WhatsApp. You probably know in LATAM and in many other regions of the world, WhatsApp it's a huge wave, right? Everybody's using it. As you may not know, is that businesses are already using it. What we're doing is giving these businesses a solution where they can communicate with all their customers and they can integrate all their employees into a single tool for communication.
So what are some of the use cases that one of your clients would do? Like what are the types of things that they're trying to get better communication?
Yeah, well, most of our customers, we started in automotive because of the story of our business. But right now we are providing Sirena, our solution, to automotive, real estate, travel, education, retail, and services. Basically, it's any kind of business where you need to communicate, where the customer may take like days or weeks in order to make the decision, and they're communicating with the business in order to ask for questions about the product, or they are asking for a quote, or they are scheduling a test drive or visit to see the product. And what we saw during our years as a company is that all these businesses, they are doing it right now using their personal WhatsApps, and they didn't have a tool to do it in a proper way, like with a WhatsApp line for the business or many WhatsApp lines for the business, and doing a proper follow-up on the tool and being able to do everything on a single tool. So the companies that use Sirena, they are answering to clients that come through different channels. They may arrive from the site, or they can start an interaction with the business just by looking at the WhatsApp at the store and sending a message. And then the employees of the store that use our product, they receive these clients. They are routed to them according to the rules that the store, that the business defines. They have every kind of analytics about the time they're taking to answer to these clients, how many clients are being handled by every employee of the business. Well, a lot of metrics around giving a good customer experience for your clients, right? That's the idea.
So this is going to be a dumb question for the Latin Americans listening, and they can skip through it.
Yeah.
But tell me about the pervasiveness of WhatsApp in Latin America, because for people in the US, it's mind blowing when I show them basically my life operates on top of it.
Yeah. It's difficult to explain to people outside of some regions. But right now, to give a quick overview, 1 every 4 people in the world use WhatsApp as their main communication tool. It's a lot. It's a lot of people. I can give you some stats, like in countries like Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, more than 70% of the population has a daily active user on WhatsApp. it's a daily active user. So basically, we're using it for everything, like chatting with friends, chatting with people of your business, sending messages to the clients, and that's what we saw that it's broken. So what we decided to do is to give these businesses a tool where they can centralize and formalize the communication with their clients. And this is not only happening in LATAM. There are some other regions that have a huge penetration of WhatsApp as well. Africa, Southeast Asia, India is it's actually the biggest market in terms of daily active users. And also some countries in Europe like Italy, Germany, Spain, Belgium. Well, there are many, many countries where WhatsApp is the main communication tool, and it's something difficult to explain to people in the US. I know it because my sister lives there, my twin sister, and she tells me like, "Oh, well, here we use SMS or here we use Facebook Messenger," but outside US, this is the most used communication tool.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I think I saw on Twitter yesterday someone from Silicon Valley was with a blue check mark was saying, wouldn't it be amazing if you could have voice conversations of 15-second voice notes back and forth, and everyone just responded, yes, that's WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, yeah. Actually, we had to include that feature in our product because businesses were asking for this. They wanted to answer the clients fast sending audio notes, so we had to do that in Sirena as well. So right now you can also send image and voice from Sirena to your clients.
So before we get a little deeper into the business, I want to get into your background. You said you're from Buenos Aires originally. Did you always know that you were going to be an entrepreneur, or was it something that came up in your career path?
Well, looking backwards, I can think of clues that I wanted to do this, but I wasn't 100% sure. Like when I was really young, I remember drawing inventions and saying, I want to invent this, I want to create this, and showing it to my parents. Like, I want this new kind of car, I want this new kind of skate. And it was, of course, it was something of a child, right? But right now, when I see that, I can imagine I had this impulse of creating something. When I was in university, I started to feel this again. So after leaving university, I decided to not go to any big enterprise. I decided to work in a startup for 2 years. And after those great 2 years, I decided to start my own business.
What was your role at the startup?
I was working in a small consultancy agency that what we were doing at the time was machine learning and AI, but it wasn't as cool as today. We were doing algorithms. We talked at that moment. We had clients outside Argentina. We were doing forecasting for big enterprises like Unilever, and I started like analyst, and then I was managing some people at that company. This company was later acquired by Accenture, like last year. And right now it's like it's like the machine learning department of Accenture, one of the companies it acquired. Yeah, it was great. It was a company of 10 people, when we started. And I think it was great to live and to see the kind of pains and the kind of things you need to organize and make happen when you have your own business, because we were doing everything. Yeah, it was a great experience.
One of the trends that I think is going to go a lot stronger over the next, say, 5 to 10 years is companies from US and Europe using services from Latin America, or having Latin American tech teams. And it's one of the things that we invest in our portfolio, is companies that have their tech and sales teams in LATAM, but go to the US market. And so far, Argentina, I think, is the leader in Latin America in that. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like, working for clients outside of Argentina, from Argentina?
Yeah, as you said, I think there's very good talent here in terms of computer science and development in general, and UX as well. There are many companies that are exporting services. It's one of the industries that is growing the most here in Argentina. And I think it's as a lot of people here talking English. Since we were kids, we were told that in order to succeed, we needed to be able to speak in different languages, including English. I think it's something very natural for us when you consider that, for instance, the US doesn't have a lot of time difference with us, and that a lot of people here can at least speak in English. And you also combine that with the good quality of universities that are here. I think that makes us have a good talent. In Sirena right now, we have 3 offices, one in Buenos Aires, one in Mexico City and one in Sao Paulo. All our development team is in Argentina because we couldn't have a better quality versus cost relationship in other regions. So we're planning to keep it like this.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned going from more of a consulting business model to a software as a service business model with the new business?
Well, yeah, a lot of things happen in the middle. I actually started a company that didn't work and lately pivoted into Sirena. That company was called Rodati. It was a marketplace in Brazil, and it was a car buying marketplace in Brazil. And what happened on that first attempt as an entrepreneur was that we had this problem where the businesses were not responding fast and with quality to the customers. We were generating a lot of traffic with this site for car dealerships, and they were not giving the answer to the clients that we expected, and we couldn't do anything. So what happened there was that we had to make it happen, even though we were not able to answer to the clients because it wasn't we didn't have the cars. We started developing tools and things to make it better. And one of the things we tried was an Android app where the salespeople at the store could start a conversation with the client. What happened with that was that this tool became Sirena. Basically, we realized that it was very important to the business. They started asking for this tool. They were saying, you know what, we already have another websites where we can generate leads and we have a lot of clients, but what about if you give me this tool for my business for every channel? And what happened with that, and I think the lesson learned was that because of listening to the customer and listening to the pain again and again, we could find something useful and we could grow a lot with that. We later on we decided to close that marketplace to stop that business. We thought we couldn't do two things at a time, and we thought this opportunity was going to be very big, and we started Sirena. And later on, something similar happened when we started integrating WhatsApp for the business. We realized when we were talking with these businesses that the main communication tool for all of them was WhatsApp. So that's why we put a lot of focus on WhatsApp. And right now we have the one and only WhatsApp CRM. And that's what our company does today. So I think the lesson learned here is to always keep iterating and evolving and thinking big on what we can do that we can do better than the rest of the world. That's what we try to do.
I think you're the fourth or fifth Argentine that's launched a business in Brazil that's been on the podcast. And there's a lot of people, especially outside of Argentina, like Chile, Peru, Colombia, and even in Mexico, that have the conception that Brazil is just an extremely hard market. It's it's a different continent, and we're not even going to look at it because it's just too complicated. But it seems like there's been Argentines that have had success in getting into the market. Can you tell me a little bit about why, being in Argentina, you decided to start in Brazil, and what you think the market's like?
Yeah, well, as the listeners would maybe they don't notice, but in terms of population, the size of the country, Brazil is much bigger than Argentina. We also seem to be losing at soccer, so they're winning in many metrics. And what happens is that if you want to start a company here, it's going to be very difficult because of one that is, I think, is going to be the main reason. Brazil is much bigger; it's just close to us. So if you look for investment, if you look for any kind of market, you're going to probably have a bigger opportunity in Brazil. I don't know why Argentinians are not afraid of Brazil. But as you said, we've listened to that as well in Mexico and in Chile and in many countries. We thought that we could make it, and we decided to start in Brazil. When we were starting that business, Brazil was very sexy in terms of investment in general. Then things happened in the country, but right now I think it's getting good again. And when you look at Argentina, there are much fewer opportunities for getting investment. So that was one of the main reasons we decided to start there.
What tips would you give to entrepreneurs from the Spanish-speaking side of Latin America when they're thinking about Brazil and to be able to have success in Brazil?
Well, one of the things I would say would be move to Brazil because, Nicolas Taleb says that one of the easiest way to learn a language is to go to prison on that country. And you probably don't want to go to prison, but living there, you're going to learn a lot. And it happened to me when I moved there. Being there, you start to learn the language. You don't need to take classes. You're going to learn. It's not that different from Spanish. There are a lot of cultural differences, and when they say something, they mean something else. But at the end, if you're living there, you're going to get it. You're going to learn. So, for us, moving to Brazil was very good, a hack in order to learn the language and the culture. The second thing I would do if I was starting, and I'm talking about software as a service in particular, would be to start soon. Because when you add another region, another language, your product needs to be able to handle that. If you start, for instance, there are some silly things, but if you start a software service company in Argentina and your developers are only thinking in terms of Argentina, even the language is going to be thought like for just one country, and it's not being to scale. This is not like US where you can have a startup that only covers US. When you start in a country like Argentina or Chile or Uruguay or small country, I think you have to start, and you start a software service company, you need to think big from the beginning. So that constraint of adding more countries, at least one country when you start, I think that's a good and healthy thing to do, even though your development team is not there yet.
So you made a pretty hard pivot from a problem that you were seeing in one business to start another one. That can be
Yes.
really challenging for people to sort of kill their baby that they've been working on for multiple years to start a new one. How did that happen, and how were you able to make that decision?
Yeah, it was really, really hard. It was probably one of the hardest things I decided. And to be honest, I was like, running. And when you're running all the day, you don't stop to think. During that moment, I decided to take holidays. It was the first time in like 2 years that I took holidays, and I went to the US. I rented an RV, and I was traveling like a week in Sequoia National Park and Yosemite and all those beautiful places. And being there, I realized one day that we were doing a lot of things, and that if we wanted to succeed, it's going to be very hard and very difficult. Yeah, very difficult to make it happen. So when I came back after those holidays, I talked with the rest of my team. I said, look, guys, I think we're doing a lot of startups instead of one. And I think we need to choose if we want to have a chance to succeed. I mean, this is not certain. This is a very difficult path. I really don't know if it's a good decision. But if we are lucky and if we work a lot, I think that we need to take this decision. That's why we killed the website and the marketplace. And it was very hard because we didn't know anything about SaaS, to be honest. So I need to study a lot about software as a service because it was a different beast. But well, with the journal of the Monday, I think we took a good decision, right?
And how did you communicate that decision to not just the team, but did you have other shareholders or advisors, or people like that? What was that decision and conversation like?
Yeah, well, I was as transparent as I could. I told them exactly what I just told you. I think we're doing a lot of things. We see a very good opportunity if we provide a software as a service, and not only in Brazil. We think this can be great, but I'm sure that if we keep on this path, it's not going to be great. So I think they believed in our opinion and our work, and it was very hard, but we still have them as investors.
And once you make the hard decision and you now are just focusing on the SaaS, what are the first couple of steps that you take to start to make it successful?
Well, the first thing we did, and I think it was an advantage, is that we already have some clients on the marketplace. So what we told them was we want to iterate this small app that we gave you. We want to iterate. We want to make it better for you. We want to integrate with the rest of the channels. So we had a good starting point for learning. I'm not kidding. There was sometimes I was sending my developers to these car dealerships so that they could see how these kind of businesses operate and how different they are from the places where they work, right? Because we're talking about very traditional companies that they are not that sophisticated, let's say, in Latam and the countries where we're selling. So there we realized that we needed to make a very simple tool. We realized that we wanted to make something that had a very short learning curve. We saw a lot of constraints. I think that was an advantage, being very close to the customer. I think that's one of the, and if I started a company again, I would do the same. Like work with the client, like get some 10 clients and work with them to make the tool work, whatever it takes, and then start scaling.
So you're now in 3 cities, 3 different offices and clients across the
Yeah.
region. How did it start to scale from the first clients in the marketplace in Brazil to where you are today?
Yeah, well, we had the development team in Argentina. Most of them are in the company today. So we decided to get a few clients in Argentina so that we had another language, another use case. So because we thought there may be differences, and we wanted to have them as soon as wanted to know them as soon as possible. Later on in 2016, I think it was, or early 2017, we got the first client in Mexico. It was a very funny story, but one of my co-founders, Julian, he was going on holidays and he wanted to get a client from Mexico. I know he wanted to open Mexico, and I told him, okay, if you go on holidays and you get at least one client in Mexico, I'm going to think about it. And it happened. He went on holiday and then he went to Mexico City and he closed well one of the clients we have today. And on that same trip, he started talking with more clients, potential clients there, and we learned that the same pains were happening in that region as well. So we started in Mexico. Right now, Mexico represents a third of our revenue in terms, of our revenue. And then we started growing in the countries of the region. So we have now clients, a lot of clients in Argentina, Mexico, Chile, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, where we started the marketplace. Right now, we have clients in 15 different countries. We already have some clients outside Latam right now, and that's probably going to be the next stage of the company.
It's about the most stereotypical vacation for an entrepreneur, going on vacation and coming back with clients.
Yeah, it's very hard, And the surname of my business partner, it's Vender, and it's in Spanish that word vender, it means to sell. So I always joke with that. I'm saying that you cannot stop selling, right? If we send him to Siberia, he's going to be selling.
So what was the inflection point where you knew that the decision to make that hard pivot and close down the marketplace was going to be a success?
I think it was early 2019, around mid 2019, where we achieved break even. We were growing faster, and we started seeing this very strong use case around WhatsApp. It was starting to happen in businesses. Later on, we raised a Series A with Mercado Libre, with Dalus Capital and NXTP. That was our first institutional investment in Latam. In our company, and it happened in Latam. And I think that was a place where we said, okay, this seems to be working. I think we have a good chance of making something big here.
And what was the process like raising money from both Mexican and Argentine funds, plus also a big multinational in Mercado Libre?
Yeah, well, we were focused on that. We were only focused in Latam at that time. Right now, we have a more open-minded of other regions. We're actually thinking about them. But at that time, we were only thinking about Latam. So I decided to talk with VCs in Latam. Basically, I think I talked with most of the VCs in Latam that are actually a VC, for this kind of stage, because there are a lot of different things and there are family offices. But I wanted to try to make it as Silicon Valley as possible, even though we are in Latam. So at the end, we talked with different VCs. We discarded the very strange term sheets and conditions we received because we received some very strange things. And at the end, we found some people that were thinking in very lean and I think in a healthy way about the relation with the startup. And that's why we decided to choose these investors. And Mercado Libre was a natural thing for us because a lot of the businesses that use Sirena in Latam, they also have Mercado Libre. So they were interested in our business. And they have a VC part, they have the Mercado Libre fund. So they knew my product team and they really liked them. So they joined the round.
So you talked about some weird term sheets and also that your comment was, I think, something about like the VCs that are actually VCs. So for people who aren't in the region, what kind of stuff did you see? What was it like in 2016 raising money?
the Series A happened in 2018. It
28.
was last year, but I don't think it's very different. There are not a lot of VCs that operate as in the US, I think, or there's obviously not as much offer as there. And we received some very strange things from people that were called VCs, but for instance, we received a term sheet that said, okay, we're going to give you X money, and at the end of the year, if you do this, we're going to give you more. And in 2 years, we're going to give you more. At that time, depending on this and this, we're going to give you another valuation. So I was like, what the fuck is this? You know, and had nothing to do with what you read in the blogs and in what happens in Silicon Valley, I guess. And we decided to discard that. It was very strange. I think that we would not be able to raise in the future from international VCs if we do something as crazy as that. So, but we lose a lot of time with that. So at the end, I think there are not as much VCs, but you can find good people, good VCs in Latam where you can raise your money as well.
What advice would you give to other LATAM founders about the fundraising process? How can they be successful to raise money?
Well, a lot of things I did were wrong. I would start, instead of talking with everybody as I did, I would start talking with very similar, similar in terms of industry or kind of business model startup. I would, for instance, if I was starting raising money for a software service company like ours, I would talk with other software service companies in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico that raise money, and I would see who they raise it with, and I would get the opinion of their investors before doing the process. I think well, it wasn't that long. The whole process took 6 months, but I think it would be much shorter if I had done it the other way, instead of talking with everybody and discarding them based on my criteria. I think you can leverage what happened to other companies like yours, and you can also use Crunchbase and these tools where you can see the funding, the public rounds. You can get the information of the investor, how much they invested, if they were lead investors. So I would spend one day doing that, and I think it's going to save you some weeks.
Yeah, it's really good advice to reach out to portfolio companies of the funds to get their feedback. And it's really important to not just look at the ones that are the big successes from the portfolio, because probably they're going to say good things, but look for the ones that maybe aren't as successful or have failed that you can also find on Crunchbase, and talk to those founders as well, because you want to find somebody that's going to be hopefully the same with you in the good and the bad.
I completely agree. Yes.
So what if you could go back to when you're just leaving the consulting firm and looking to become an entrepreneur for the first time, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
I think that you can get a lot of advice and you can read a lot of books. I'm very nerd. I read a lot of books on everything that is recommended in terms of software service, doing a startup, raising money, whatever. But there's an experience component that you cannot avoid. I can tell some people do this, do it like this, it's going to happen like this. But if you don't experience it and you don't suffer and you don't see the consequences of your actions, it's going to be very difficult for you to truly learn it. So I would start as soon as possible. It doesn't need to be your own startup. You can start working in another startup. You can start another project. For instance, before doing my business, I had a strange part of my life where I started a theater company and I was organizing that group. And I think all these experiences are going to make it better for you when you need to do your company. So you can study a lot and you can learn a lot, but start doing as soon as you can.
You mentioned you like to read. What books, blogs, podcasts, documentaries do you like to recommend to people, whether about startups or just life in general?
Okay. Well, in terms of blog for software as a service, I really like, it's probably very common, the Tom Tungu's blog from Redpoint in the US. Thomas is one of the greatest authors, I think, in terms of SaaS content. I start to doubt if he writes everything or if he has people working there, because it's very good content and it's a lot. I would recommend going to Thomas Tungu's blog. In terms of books, I really like Taleb. As I mentioned, it gives you, I think, a healthier perspective in terms of startups and the role of luck. And I really like that offer. We also have a podcast in Sirena. It's in Spanish, and we started to do some Portuguese chapters. It's called Bajo del Marketing, and we interview software as a service businesses from LATAM. What else would I recommend? There's another book I read not long ago called Lost and Founder, from the founder of Moz, that is software service company in the US. That it's incredible. It gives a point of view of a founder doing a business and rejecting investment and rejecting a higher acquisition of his company, all the background of what happened at his company and the suffering that he had. And I think it's great, and I would recommend that.
What's next for you in the business?
Well, we've been growing a lot. We've been working a lot of years right now, but we've been growing. Thanks God, we've been growing a lot on the last months. We multiplied by 2 the number of accounts that we have in the last 6 months. So that's a lot of growth. And we are thinking about consolidating in LATAM. We want to keep selling and growing very fast in LATAM, but we're also starting to analyze the other markets I mentioned today, like Europe or India or Southeast Asia, where the penetration, the pervasiveness of WhatsApp, as you said, it's very important. We're defining whether we should raise more money or not. We're in the middle of that. We don't need that money now, but we see this opportunity. It's very, very big, and we want to be the player number 1 on this new market. So that's
awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this podcast. It's going to be fun to watch you guys continue to grow, and hopefully more people in the US start to understand what WhatsApp is, and watch you guys continue to grow.
Great. Well, thank you, Nathan, for your time as well. If people who are listening to this podcast want to know us, they can go to our website, which is sirena.app. It's SIRENA.app. What else? And well, my Instagram account is Migue, as it sounds, so you can chat with me if you want as well.
Awesome. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Nathan. Have a good one.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Crossing Borders with my guest, Migue Morkin from Sirena. If you like this podcast, please share it with a friend and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps us out. Thanks to Angel, Sofia, and Josefina for helping produce this podcast and writing the show notes, and thanks for you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.